Hey team, welcome back to the show. Today it is Coach Natalie and I, and we are just running a Q&A. So we both put story boxes out there on Instagram for the listeners. Thank you for everyone. Thank you to everyone for your questions. Hopefully we get to all of them here. If we don't, we will get into them in another episode. But before we get into it, Natalie, anything going on with you? Anything new you want to fill us in on?
I got another food bump, so
Let's go. Very frequent these days.
gonna keep on eating.
How much did you guys bump?
25 grams of carbs on training
Okay,
days. And
not bad.
and wait, and 35 grams of carbs on rest days. Yeah.
Pretty good. Okay,
I know. And then last week he had increased rest days 10 grams of fat.
nice. Damn, you have a
So,
lot more food in the last 2 weeks then.
yeah. And I was like, I'm just curious, like, why? I mean, I know like why I increase clients' food. Like I know why I would, but it's rare that I would increase a client's food like in such rapid succession.
Hmm.
Like week over week.
Yeah.
It's like oh, and more and more. And he was like, "Well, your body's responding like really well to the food, and we're getting ready to push you hard. So." Enjoy.
Enjoy it while it lasts, basically.
The Last Supper. I don't know, but I'm not gonna lie at all. It's wonderful. Like I cannot relate at all to people that are like, I can't get my food down. I'm like, give it to me. I can. Like, not a problem.
Yeah.
Having said that, I am not one of those people with like an adaptable metabolism who like has to eat up to like 3,000 calories or something for a female. My food's not that high. Um, Relative to like some ladies that I coach
Oh yeah.
and other ladies that you hear about. So it's not like wildly high or anything, but I can say with full confidence that if it was, I would not struggle. Like, bring it. We're good.
It is pretty crazy how much they can vary though. Even like we were reviewing Andrea's client Janae, who's doing
Yeah.
her fit model competition this weekend. I was like, damn, her food is so high. Her food's way
Yeah.
higher than mine is right now.
Yeah.
Um, it is a little wild to see just the variation in just how much people can eat, but also like the way hunger scales to that. Like I have clients where it's like we're like a 140-pound woman. We're losing well on like 2,000 calories, but it's like not doing that much cardio. And it's like, damn, your intake, especially when I factor in the cardio, we're like eating the same amount of food, but you're extremely hungry. You're losing at a good clip. It's such an interesting thing still, like how much variability there is there.
It's all relative. And what you can never do, like as a coach or a human, you can't invalidate someone's experience, so you can never invalidate someone's hunger and be like, oh, that's not true. Or like, there's no way because you're eating so much food, like, because it really is truly so unique, individual, and relative to the person. Like that's not like, me looking at what you diet on. That's not a fair comparison for me to be like, but your food's still so high. It's like relative to you, like, no, it's not. Although I might be eating more than you right now.
What are your calories?
I'm like around 26 or so on my training
You
days.
definitely are then, yeah. I mean, now I'm like
Yes.
22 on training days, 19 on rest days, so you definitely are
Oh yeah, my rest days are higher than yours too.
on stuff.
Incredible. But anyways, my point is you can't invalidate, someone's hunger because it's very real to them. But it is interesting to kind of theorize as to how much of hunger is like real versus perceived.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not invalidating it because like if you're experiencing
It
it,
sounds
I
like
think
you're invalidating it. Is that what you're
I'm
doing?
invalidating you. Um, but you know what I mean though? It's like,
Yeah.
is it more like psychological, like born of some sort of like scarcity, or is it real like physical hunger? I don't know. It's just kind of interesting, but regardless, it just is. And it's something that you kind of have to take into account and deal with. So,
Yeah. You also cannot invalidate someone's lats, which is, I believe, why you started www.tinylats.com, correct?
to invalidate your lats or lack thereof.
It is a fascinating thing, though. Cool. Well, a lot of food bumps lately. Anything else new, exciting?
It makes me so happy. So trading is still like really great. I feel like it kind of did like an upside down bell curve or something,
There's a big
where
shift.
it like took that dip a couple weeks ago where I was like not sure what was going on, and now it's just like it's kind of going up. And even last weekend, like my elbows were like just starting to like not freak out, but they were just getting so like sore.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, here we go, And I had a coincidentally that weekend I had a chiro appointment, got some like needling done, and it didn't really feel like it did much, but I was just like, oh God, like what's this week gonna look like? And like trained upper 2 days ago on Tuesday, and like actually feel great now. So
Oh, yeah.
they say motion is lotion.
That's what I say. That saying always creeps me out for some reason. I don't know the motions in the lotion or something like that. I think Brandon DeCruz was. Someone posted on a story once something relative to me, and I was like, hmm. Anybody but you, Brandon, and I would be creeped out, but I'm kind of flattered.
Brandon
Anyways,
gets a free pass. He can do whatever he wants.
absolutely. All right, you ready to rip off some Q and A?
Let's rip it.
Fire away. You go first.
All right. When can I come talk shit on your pod from Nick Ridpath?
Well, we do not swear around here, Nick Redpath, but outside of that, anytime. We definitely do need to have Nick on the podcast. He's so smart, just brilliant when it comes to movement. I love following all Nick's stuff. I know it, for
I think
those
we
who
should
don't,
just bring him on and give him a topic and just let him talk for an hour, and we'll just sit here.
for those that don't know though, I mean, like Nick's been helping you with your programming, working around your injuries, kind of in the pre-script crew, one of the educators there. Just such a smart dude. No, I would love that Nick on. We'll set that up actually anytime.
Yeah. Yeah, if you guys aren't following him, you should. He's a cool dude, knows a lot of stuff. And he's definitely he's helped me like both with my own like training, but also just really level up with some of my knowledge as a coach, and just I've been able to help my clients so much better with troubleshooting like certain things and just like different frameworks for thinking about things. So I've really enjoyed my work with him, and he's helped the team out like with some stuff as well. So it would be cool to have him on
Yep, whenever you're ready, Nick.
if you're out there.
Natalie, how long does it take to lose muscle mass slash strength if you take time away?
Something I fear every night when I go to bed. Just kidding.
If you are sleeping, you're losing tissue.
Anytime you're not training, you're losing. Um, I don't like have a study to quote off the top of my head. Uh, but honestly, like this topic is really interesting to me because I have like a couple things to say. First and foremost, um, like I think you actually can lose some muscle mass in like 2 to 4 weeks if you just don't train.
Hmm.
Last I think I read like anything kind of pertinent about that. Um, but I would follow that up with the fact that it is always much easier to rebuild or regain lost tissue. Like if you
Yeah.
once had it, it's going to be easier to get it back. So that's what I would lead with. And then I'd also follow that up with why are we asking this question? Um and where I'm coming from there is if you're if you're like going on a 2 week trip to Europe, let's say, like you're like a big trip of a lifetime kind of thing. Do you want to spend that trip training? Maybe, and like that's cool. And like there are some really sick gyms out there, go for it. But if that's not your MO and you're like, no, like we're gonna be, I don't know, like going all over like Asia, like bouncing around and like training's just not a priority, that's when I would come back and be like, okay, but like why are we stressing out about this then? Like this is just or like if there's some reason that you legitimately can't train for a couple weeks, maybe you're getting surgery or something, like why are we stressing out about this? Because like what's the alternative? And so like the example I gave for like traveling around Asia, Okay, well then if we're really that scared and worried about it, then we need to make training a priority, and that's your answer. But if we decide that it is more important to spend that time, like traveling, not worrying about it, probably going to get tons of steps in, going to get plenty of activity. If that's the decision that you're making, then we need to be confident in that decision. And then again, under the umbrella of it is much easier to regain lost tissue. And addendum to all of that is like realistically speaking, even if you do lose some tissue in 2 to 4 weeks, I dare you to put a number on it. Like I dare you to quantify that.
Yeah.
So it's like how are you like really gonna know? Because any kind of time you take off from the gym, whether it be like even like a 2 day deload or maybe get sick or something, or like a week, you still have that kind of like come back from a deload feeling. Like it,
Right.
it never it never feels like, oh, I just didn't miss a beat. There's always like kind of a little bit of a slow or like rough patch, like getting back to baseline for whatever reason that you missed. So I think it's a very interesting discussion. But it's one I have a lot with clients because, like my clients are awesome and they make killer progress and they don't want to lose it. And I get it. And it's a
Yeah.
very fair question. I get why people ask it. But I do think the more important question is like, why are we really like worried about this? And through that lens, can we kind of like break that down and realize like, oh, I probably shouldn't be worried about this.
Yeah, I fully agree. Especially, this is almost always we're looking at shorter time scales, one,
Yeah.
2, 3 weeks. And it varies. I mean, we're always kind of losing and gaining muscle, right? Like protein breakdown and protein synthesis are always kind of happening. So, I mean, even if we look at like, hey, in the last, like, look at the 48-hour period and like, I don't know, maybe in the last 6 hours, you did lose a little bit of muscle, but we stimulate muscle protein synthesis, we train, our net is a gain. But then, I mean, looking at the bigger picture, even I believe it is around 2 weeks is where we potentially start to lose a bit of muscle, like a more measurable amount, but still, I think very, very minuscule. And I believe that was when like individuals were bedridden, is where like 1 to 2 weeks in, we start to lose more. Where if we're active, we're eating plenty of protein, etc., less likely to be concerned about it. But even then, again, it's a very minuscule amount. And then when we look at the ability to regain said tissue, that's the important thing is it comes back incredibly quickly, right? It is thought that I believe it's about half the time we were away from training when we were losing muscle is what it takes to get it back. But then the longer we like extrapolate that timeline out, the less I think it's less still. So like if you're away from the gym for a year, and we were back in the gym for like 3, 4 months, I think we gained back all the tissue that we had lost. But if we're looking at like, okay, I was gone for 3 weeks, maybe we did lose a bit by the end of your first week back. We've gained it back and we're good. So it's just really, and again, that's a very, very negligible amount. I think a lot of times like this fear is more so based on like a feeling of like, I feel flatter, I feel fluffier, and your muscles will be more depleted. We won't have as much glycogen in them. So we will feel like they're a little bit smaller, but that's not actual muscle tissue, contractile tissue that we've lost.
But I think also people feel like, oh, this just like feels so heavy, and it's like, does it, or are you out of practice? Because that's a thing too. It's
Yeah.
like, I've been rocking this lift in my program for the last 12 plus months, like every single week. And then I basically just took 3 to 4 weeks off. Like, okay, well now we're like out of practice. So like how much of what you're feeling is just sort of like regaining coordination,
Yeah.
versus like actual like loss of strength. Because again, like, I challenge someone to like really measure this, which I know they have done in studies and stuff, but like how much of like that feeling is like actual, like what percentage of that weight is like loss of strength that you're
Yeah.
feeling?
It very much is, though, even like with a week away from these movements that we're used to, we do lose a little bit of that skill component. It's
Yeah.
just like, I mean, I don't know if you play piano every day, and you would
French
know
horn.
way better. French horn, I don't know. It's French horn. Like if you take more time off French horn, I'm assuming when you first come back, you feel a little bit rusty. You're not quite as sharp,
It's
right?
actually like the parallels are striking. to like
French.
taking time off of a musical instrument because it's
That's what
like
makes you a great coach is the French horn background.
honestly probably, but
But same, right? It's
yep.
the skill component. And I always tell clients like, hey, if we take you just a week off, understand the first week back you're gonna feel a little bit weaker, everything's gonna feel a little bit heavier. It's not because we actually lost muscle, it is because that skill component, we just need to brush up on that. Next week we'll feel good, we'll feel back to normal, we'll also be a little bit more sore, then we'll be fine.
Yep.
Cool. What do you got?
Does eating a healthy snack an hour before bed cause fat gain? Is it bad for you? What if the goal is to build muscle?
I would just make sure you don't get into like 59 minutes or less before bed because that's no, I'm just joking. Um, no, it's, I mean, it's all going to be context dependent. Like, does it cause fat gain? If it puts us in a calorie surplus, if it puts us over our total daily calorie intake, yeah. Otherwise, no. Again, like, is it good for you or bad for you? It's going to be so context dependent as well. Like, hey, maybe it's good for you to be in a surplus, maybe not. So it's really just comes down to our total calorie intake. There's nothing magic about like us eating a snack before bed. Healthy is going to be very vague. I would
Yeah,
again
that's really true.
look at like how does this fit with our overall caloric needs as well, rather than because I mean I think when people focus on like, well, I just eat healthy, right? Like I know it doesn't really seem like it comes up anymore, but a lot of clients in the past would be like, hey, I just eat healthy. I'm not sure why I wasn't making progress before I started. So, well, we weren't actually tracking our intake and measuring it relative to our output. When the goal is to build muscle, if we train early and we get like some carbs, that could really help fuel that session. Uh, if we are under consuming calories and this puts us higher, cool, we'll be in a good place. But yeah, past that, it's just really context dependent. I don't know if I have a whole lot more to add there. Do you?
I would just like regardless of I mean your goal, I would just pay attention to like how you sleep after.
Good call.
So
Yeah.
like, for some people, especially in fat loss, like we can do things like some people will like sleep a lot better like with carbs at night. Some people high fats like kind of help them sleep better when sleep if and when sleep is an issue. But this specific question says like, an hour before bed. I don't think there's nothing magical there. You covered the gist. But yeah, I would say if it messes with your sleep in any way, like you're having issues digesting, you ate a really heavy meal, then that's a problem because we do need our sleep. Um, Especially if you're trying to build muscle. But there's really no goal that like sleep doesn't help with, fat loss, muscle building,
Fortunate
general health
truth.
and well-being. So that's, there's, yeah, that's the one thing I would pay attention to. If it messes with your sleep, then cut it out.
Love it. Do any of you ever do any other types of fitness slash training for fun? Yoga, Pilates classes? And if so, how do you integrate it with training split and not overexert yourself?
You want me to take this one first?
Did I answer the last one?
I don't remember. I think
Yes, I
you did.
did. Take it
Yes.
away. Tell us all your other hobbies.
No. Okay, next question. No. The real answer is no. Um, and that's just because, and I feel like I'm just gonna keep digging myself in a hole here of like making myself look bad. It's just because I don't have any other interests. I'm sorry, but I don't. I do. I walk a lot.
That's okay. I power walk sometimes.
There's no saving this conversation. I do really enjoy being outside when the weather is nice. I do enjoy hiking, but like not for sport, so to speak. Just like I like a good view. Who doesn't, right? I like
Yeah.
nature. As long as I have my food with me, good. I actually have recently toyed with going back to some dance classes, like some ballet.
Mm.
Um, and like for pure enjoyment. So like not necessarily for exercise, like not trying to put that in a bucket or like I just feel like I should be doing more, like nothing like that, but literally just for the pure enjoyment and like art of it.
Yeah.
Um, and if I were to do that, I would discuss it with my coach because I'm working towards a specific goal, and so like that's just information he would need. Um, But if I was like advising a client on this, and actually I do because I do have clients that engage in other activities. I actually have a
Yeah.
client, shout out to Katie, who takes in the odd CrossFit class every now and again. She just did a High Rocks race. Um, and what I have her do is there was a time when she was actually training 3 times a week. She's back to 4 though now. So she trains 4 times a week. She does an upper lower splits. And then with CrossFit, she got like a punch card, like a drop in. So it's like she's not necessarily like on a schedule of like, and I do like X CrossFit classes like per week, but it's kind of more like I'll drop in like 1 to 2 times a week and like that'll kind of be my cardio.
Right.
She's a coach herself, so she also auto regulates quite well. So the thing you have to remember, and like now, of course, I'm going to be speaking directly about like something like CrossFit. The thing you have to remember is though there are strength components to CrossFit, it is largely cardio. So it's like cardio weightlifting. Like
Right.
yes, we are using like implements to like, but it's all to test your cardiovascular fitness. So that's how I would approach something like that with a client is, like, okay, let's see if we can kind of like have this be your movement, part of your movement goal, so to speak. And we would have a lot of conversations about recovery because that's really the most important one is like, are you actually able to handle this? And like, depending on how badly, let's use Katie as an example here. If she's like, no, like I do like my lifting's important to me, but like I really, really, really enjoy, this community aspect of CrossFit. It's like, okay, cool. So maybe we learn that she's not recovering that well. Okay, so maybe we do pull her back to 3 times a week training. If
Right.
that other activity is just like really that important to her.
Right.
And we kind of like adjust her split and balance things that way. I think things like because this person is specifically asking about like yoga, Pilates. Depending on the kind of yoga, there are some more like rigorous practices, like I believe like vinyasa or like hot flow, like things like that, which we might run into some recovery issues. But something like a restorative yoga, I am like 1000% going to encourage any client to do that. So long as it doesn't stress them out from like a time management perspective. Um, but I've also had like some other clients in like health phases where maybe we've had to pull back on training a little bit and I've actually pushed
Yeah.
specifically like dance and yoga. And I've kind of put that into their protocols, because it's like they still being active is important to them. We just like can't necessarily push the training the way that we normally would. So, it's kind of like the quote strain or recovery toll of some of these other activities is kind of overshadowed by the enjoyment that that person would get from it, and that's
Yeah.
going to be the greater benefit. So I realized I just turned this into like kind of a coaching programming question, and that's because I don't have any other activities.
In short, I don't have any hobbies. Okay.
TLDR, what? TLDNR. Like I don't do anything else.
I mean, honestly, personally, mine's pretty similar. My wife and I do dance classes like once a week. It's not strenuous in the slightest. I don't
Right.
really have to think about how it works into a split. And I would say very similarly for like yoga, Pilates. A lot of clients, of course, have more of a life than we do. So do like their yoga, Pilates, even like Pelotons, go for runs, things of that nature. And honestly, it is normally not anything so strenuous that we need to be all that worried about how it impacts our training, except for, hey, we know you're going to be expending more calories. So if we see a need for like better recovery, we might like have your food a little bit higher. If we're doing like a couple of yoga classes a week, honestly, like we probably wouldn't notice all that much difference. More so like, hey, I am running, maybe we're running like 5 to 8 miles a couple like 3 4 times a week. Okay, there, like I have a client who's been prepping for a half marathon. She's running 5 days a week. Okay, there we're setting it up to where, hey, ideally we're not training on our lower body days. We do have one paired with a lower body day, and there I've adjusted our split. Like our volume as a whole is lower. We're making sure we can still recover. We're spacing that away from our training session so it doesn't impact our training when we do train on our lower body day. And as a whole, like we're spacing our cardio away from our training. But that's like a little bit more with again these even like you're like, hey, well, I'm doing like a 30-minute Peloton session or something of the sort. But we're just a lot more resilient and it's like tip past, hey, maybe your caloric needs are a little bit higher. I don't really see it being something where you need to be too worried about overexerting yourself.
it's hard for me to imagine a scenario where like a client would come to me and tell me that there's an activity they really enjoy and want to participate in, and I would say no.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, because
Yeah.
again, if I think the net benefit of the enjoyment is going to fill your cup. So it's like
Right.
I don't, like I have a client that like is very active in tennis, for example. And I do have some runners on the team. And the only thing we have to be mindful of, especially with like running, is like that tends to just like drive appetite up, to the point where appetite can like outpace aesthetics, I find.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so like then that becomes a conversation. But again, like, it's I can't imagine a scenario if someone's like, "Hey, I really enjoy this," and I'm like, "Well, too bad, can't do it."
No, I again, it's for us. It's not like I don't want this to impact my like ability to get more jacked. I was running for a while, but I just don't really like running, honestly. Uh,
Yeah, I just don't like anything else that I want to. There's nothing I want to do.
I do like to hike also. I love that about Arizona. There's
Yeah.
lots of cool hikes here. Okay, moving on. I'm gonna kick this one to you because I'm not sure the context of this. Can you maybe talk a bit more about asking versus questioning your coach? Socially inept over here.
All right. I This is a good question. I actually shared another coach's story on my
Okay, got it.
Instagram stories the other day. She had some really good thoughts about like, questioning your coach versus asking questions. And I thought it was like a really good post, so I shared it. And so I this person is referencing that, I believe. Um, yeah. So asking a question, like you should ask, like as an athlete who's working with a coach, you should 100% know why you're doing what you're doing. um I will say some people don't care and they're like, just tell me what to do and I'm on it. It's like, okay. But I think for a lot of the people we work with, like, people are genuinely very interested in how all this works.
Mhm.
And so it's very normal to be like, oh, okay, like, why are we, like me asking Dom, like, oh, really? Like, okay, why are we raising food? Um, I think that's a little bit different than, I think the way you present it is everything versus me coming back and being like, well, last time I was in a build, we didn't do this, so why are we doing it now? Do you understand like the tone difference there? Like, that's being genuinely curious is one thing, but like if the question is motivated by like fear or like lack of control, like being scared of losing control, and it's more motivated by like I'm distrustful of this information, like is this going to work? It's like your coach is making a suggestion because they think, they either hypothesize or they know that it will work. So wanting to know how it's going to work is one thing. Like, oh, like I cool, like how come we're doing this? Well, because like I've seen, really good results with this or whatever. Versus the other is almost like a form of pushing back or like questioning, like if what your coach is suggesting is like the right move. And it's like, well, but that's why you hired your coach. Like there's got to be an element of trust there. Versus every time your coach tries to make a change in your protocol, it's like, well, I didn't do that last time.
Yeah.
Does that make
No,
more
that's,
sense? Or
no,
am
that
I
makes
like,
sense. No, I get it. It's an interesting conversation for sure.
let's see if I can like even pull up that post. Say like it.
Because I'm not, I for sure have this come up with like,
Mhm.
hey, so previous, like I did this previously and this worked super well for me. Why are we doing it differently? And I don't care about questions like that. I'm good with it. I think that when it is over and over and over, we are always, hey, this is what used to work for me. And I'm constantly like, can we do it like this again? Can we do it like this again? We work through, hey, here's the reasoning. Here's why we're doing it differently. A lot of times that turns into like okay, so do we understand why we're doing this way? We understand like why what we were doing for previously didn't work in the long term. Then we need to like start to come up with a better way. Like when we have this kind of when these thoughts are normally fear based pop up,
Yeah.
we need to come up with a better, more productive way to work through this than just immediately like. I think it's typically just stems from this fear of like, well, this isn't going to work for me. This isn't
I
going to work for
think
me.
I'm going to interrupt because I think you just made the salient point here. um, because I feel like I've been like talking in circles, but like I think what you just said is good. Like one is like, hey, I really just want to know how this works. The other is fear based. And
Yeah.
to me, that's the difference. And it's okay to express fear.
Mhm.
Like that's okay. But when it's kind of like something that keeps popping up,
Yeah.
um, and I did find this post by the way, and if I'm summing it up, she says like, one is for the sake of growing, for personal understanding, the other is for doubt.
I'll have to look at the post. I'm not. I don't remember this one actually, but it's a
That's
very yeah. It's an interesting discussion for sure. I think that again, I really think the biggest thing because I also think like sometimes clients are doubting, clients are afraid, and hey, you bringing that up is the way that we can address this and work through it. But when we're running into like, hey, we're making progress when we're sticking to the plan, but this is sabotaging us, and like every time we need to adjust something or we work through this multiple times, it's just getting to the point where like this isn't productive. This is holding us back. Why are we wasting so much time and energy on this? So I think it's again like I don't, at least personally, I don't want it to be like a, hey, don't if you're afraid or you don't trust, you don't understand the plan, or like you're doubting the plan. Cool. I want to know so we can talk through it. You're not hurting my feelings. But if it's like a constant trend, we've talked about
yes.
this over and over, we've worked through this, especially like when, hey, we're seeing progress, or sometimes this can turn into the like, and so I'm still not fully bought in. And that's like kind of partway to things. And that's why I'm not seeing progress. That really does become a big issue.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's hard without knowing the context of the question very well. It's a little bit harder to answer. Do you have anything else to add there?
No, I think it's a really good conversation.
Hmm.
Um, and for all of our clients out there listening, we're not at all saying don't ask questions. Like, you should have a right to know, like, why you're doing what you're doing. But I think again, to your point, to the point of the post, like the other side of the coin is like born out of like doubt and fear. Um, and if that's coming up every single time we try to make a move, that's where it gets counterproductive.
Oh, for sure.
It's normal for everyone to have some sticking points somewhere, like very
Mhm.
normal. But like if it's like every time, like we can't go left or right without catastrophizing it and like overthinking it, and it's like, and also to some extent you really should have hired someone that you hopefully trust. And sometimes like the answer is that your coach just knows it's going to work because they've done it a million times, and they like just because of experience, like they like, I'm not going to present a master's thesis on like why this is the right move for us. Like this is where we got to go.
Yeah. No, I don't think I really have anything else to add there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, is it my turn?
yes.
Ken, this is from our friend Mike, by the way.
My
Can you
guy.
talk about injury management, training around injuries, mindset, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most important things with injury management, I mean, you could probably give really good insights on the specifics of like, here's how we assess and yada, yada, yada. I think of from the mindset perspective, one of the most important things to understand is we can almost always still make progress in some way, shape, or form when we are injured. I think that's one of the biggest things. I know I've done this in the past. I've talked through clients with this stuff quite frequently whenever something pops up. So we can always make progress elsewhere. Like I think of my girl Laura, right? She shattered her kneecap last year before we started working together. And then it's been something that's just been an ongoing issue. Like from the start, we weren't really able to train her uh, lower body very well, and like it's just been something she's just been constantly working through. But we've still made mad progress with her upper body and like posterior chain, her glutes, hamstrings. We still made solid progress as well. But it is something where it would be so easy to just like, well, I can't, like, I want to build my quads and I can't really train my quads and just kind of throw in the towel, right? Where we can still make great progress. Um, when I hurt my shoulder, I remember I was just such a little bitch about it when I did that, and I was like, I could just have trained my lower body. I never trained my lower body back then. I could have like made so much progress there. I could have leg pressed and done all these things that I just didn't because I was just frustrated I couldn't train like I did before. So understanding that your training may have to adapt, and especially if there's certain movements that you're attached to. For me, hurt my shoulder. It was the bench press, barbell bench press. I couldn't barbell bench press anymore. So like, what's the point of life, right? Where they're okay, I can get better at building my lats. I can build my lower body, right? There are other movements that
So
I
why
can do a
didn't you?
dumbbell press. I don't know, dude. I asked myself to this day. I feel like that was the brief window I had where my lats could have grown. Um,
Missed that one.
but just being willing to be adaptable and shift goals for a while. And also don't just try to keep pushing through it. This is another very common one, which I get it. And again, I also struggle with this. It is so easy to get greedy if that's feeling a little bit better. I'm going to just go back to what I was doing before. We're back and then set ourselves back again. A lot of times this stuff gets drug out for so much longer than it needs to because people aren't willing to pull back. Where it's like, hey, if we just pulled back a bit, we could have made so much more progress like 6 months down the road from now than like us constantly re-injuring it because we're afraid we'll regress if we pull back. What else you got to add there?
First of all, we did a whole podcast episode about injuries and like how to manage them. Remember? This was like a year ago
Yeah,
or so,
yeah,
and I was really proud of that one.
yeah.
I
I'll
mean,
link that up in the show notes.
yeah. So I thought, and I remember at the time sending it out to a bunch of clients, who we were like working through some stuff, and I was like, hey, I just think this would be. I think that's why we did the podcast. But I remember sending it out to them and was like, hey, I just think this would be like super relevant. Um, I hope it's still relevant because I haven't listened to it, but um, but I think mindset is just so important. And I was actually going back and forth with him a little bit. And I was talking about like, listen, injuries are just like part of the ticket price for this lifestyle. Like if we just have to accept a certain level of risk if we engage in physical activity. And that's any physical activity, right? You could also like step off the curb and break your ankle, God forbid. But like if we're gonna lead an active lifestyle, we are automatically signing up for a certain risk profile. Um, it's just gonna happen. It never happens when you want it to. It's never convenient. It's always annoying. But one thing I was saying to him was, I'd rather pay that price than the price of a sedentary lifestyle. So I think again, mindset wise, setting yourself up that way, like, hey, these things unfortunately are pretty inevitable. Like they're just gonna accidents happen. Most everyone has like imbalances or some sort of movement dysfunction that eventually, if pushed hard enough, is going to come to the surface. And like you said, there's always something that can be done from like a rehab perspective or like focusing on other body parts. I also like to kind of frame it as your body's like check engine light. It's like alerting us to, yo, like actually your shoulder function is ass. Like, oh. So it's also like it is an opportunity to improve. Because again, that check engine light comes on and it's like, whoa, like, why is this happening? It's like, oh, probably because like I don't move that well, like at the shoulder. So I guess like now, it's time to dig into that. And then look, at the end of the day, if treated properly, you're gonna come out of it with better shoulder function. And the better your shoulder function is, the better your lat training is gonna be. And then you have big lats. So
Let's go. It's that simple.
it is. That's always where I'm going to end every conversation is how to get bigger lats.
It always comes full circle. My check engine light has been on for years, and another good analogy. The analogies are really lining up with training. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, reasons why training to failure all the time is not a good idea. How do I slow my progress?
This really depends on the client. It depends on
Where's this like related to a post or?
no, I don't, not that I'm
Because
referencing.
I think we're pretty. I mean, we don't have to all the time, but we're for sure pro like training to failure where it makes sense. Just to make
Yeah.
sure that's clear.
Yes.
Okay.
Um, yeah, full disclosure, like in my personal program, every set of everything is to failure all the time. So I will throw that out there.
I
Um,
take life to failure every day.
um, however, maybe like why training to failure it like when is train I'll reframe the question. I'm not sure if this is what was intended, but like when is it not a good idea to train to failure?
Good way to put it. Okay.
Because I think the conversation will be maybe what was intended. Um, it depends largely on your recovery capacity, is what I'm gonna say. Number one, like how good are we at pushing ourselves and can we recover from it? I do actually have a couple clients where like every time we kind of try to make those moves, the wheels fall off. So like that's a sign to me as a coach that yo, like maybe our recovery capacity isn't there. And that can be due to so many things, like people's level of like stress resilience, excuse me. You know, that can be like genetic, it can be like nurtured, you know, learned. And again, like we also have to acknowledge that like for most people, training isn't the only stressor in their life.
Yeah.
So it's like as much as we want to think like, come on, man, like all you got to do is like take this hack squat to failure. Okay, right. But like then they've got to go back to like a super stressful job and family life and bills and you know like so it has to do I think with your stress resilience. So like if we're getting a lot of check engine lights to keep the continuity here, that might be a reason not to. And you know because we are discussing training to failure, we also have to assume that whoever is doing the training actually has a an understanding of like what that threshold is. I know like with a lot of clients that we coach, I mean, there's okay with some of the clients that we coach, um, sometimes like I will also frame things like we're going to failure, and the reality is that that person isn't there yet. But you've got to tee it up that way. So even though they're not literally at failure, like you telling them to push harder to failure is like going to get them closer there, even though it's like really not a textbook fail, if that makes sense. So there's that kind of like nuance to it as well. I feel like I'm all over the place today, but
No,
no,
you're doing good, dude. Keep
okay.
going. You're doing good. Uh,
But I like, yeah, I do think that different people have different tolerance levels of this for sure. Um, And there's also the conversation of like RAR zero versus failure, right? Which are technically two different things. Like, so RAR zero, like you literally have zero reps left in the tank, and then to failure, like you went there anyway, right? So they're actually kind of like two different things. But again, to my point, this is context dependent because a lot of people we coach don't really have a great sense of what RIR zero is. You know, like if you had even one rep left in the tank, that's not RIR zero.
yeah, no, for sure.
There's
I'm
that
just
conversation as well. Um, but I think the answer though is like stress resilience because again, like there's like yesterday I trained quads and I was doing like pendulum and I went up in weights and like it was a great set and I knew that I did not have one rep left. Like I knew it, but I just went for it anyway. And if I had the self-awareness to know that like I am really going to pay the price later if I
right,
just go for this anyway, but
right.
I can bounce back like pretty well. But that's something I've learned. If I couldn't, you know, and like again, trial and error would teach me there. But like if I couldn't, I probably would have stopped myself. But I knew like I'm just gonna like make sure anyways, because like I'm
Right.
really well fed right now. I'm like sleeping well. Like we're good, and like I'm alive today to tell the tale. So
Fortunately, you are still here, but yeah, it's. I mean, I think that's a pretty well-rounded answer. Truly, it just is. What is our recovery capacity right now? I think for most people, like the idea that we need to pull back is generally not that helpful because, as you said, It is very rare when a new client starts, at least, that the problem is we are training too hard.
Right.
It can be like, hey, our sleep sucks, our nutrition sucks. But if we're in a place of poor recovery, it's very rare that it's because like, damn, you're just crushing yourself for taking everything to failure and beyond and like doing these triple drop sets and stuff. As we get more advanced, we get good at understanding what that looks like. Like when we're dieting, we have less recovery resources. Or for sure, like periods of higher stress, or like I think of like clients I've worked with who are like trying to get pregnant, for example. Hey, like we want to pull back our training, we're trying to restore a cycle, something like that. So it is very context dependent. But yeah, generally, especially for like a newer client, I typically will frame it as like, hey, we're trying to go to failure all the time. I had this conversation with a client last year. She was frustrated because she said, you're the only coach I know who, like, we've been training to failure for 12, 14 weeks now. I don't know any other coach that does that. And it's like, well, the thing here is like, it's said on the paper to fail. Not paper, you understand what I'm saying? Your program has said to fail, but we haven't actually taken any of this failure yet. So we've gotten to like 2 to 3 in the tank, which is improvement. But what if I like pull that back to 2 to 3 in the tank, like 2 RAR now, if we're at like 5, like we're not getting anywhere. So it is a funny thing too, distinguishing like, okay, what's on the program versus am I actually taking it there? But I don't know that I have a whole lot else to add on that one. Cool. What else you got?
Okay, how, and this is asked by one of our clients. So how your coaching of us, like as clients, can help less experience, like can help us less experienced coaches apply your knowledge. So I guess like, okay, it was this was phrased, how your coaching of us can help less experienced coaches apply your knowledge to our clients. I think
Okay.
like how can we take what you're giving us and apply it to our clients?
Absolutely. I mean, I would make sure you understand why we're doing what we're doing, why it's working, and just going through firsthand, like what you're doing with your clients. First, I mean, you'll see the way we communicate, the way we deliver things. When you ask a question or when we're looking through your check-ins, the things that we comment on versus don't, how we deal with those. I think there's a ton there just by, again, like watching through how we problem solve with you. I think that as much as like the X's and O's of nutrition program design, which will also be helpful to see, like, hey, how do we adjust your volume in the deficit or your nutrition based on what we saw here, or we added more fats based on what we were seeing. Like all those things are pretty obvious. But again, like how we go about troubleshooting and problem solving things. I think when like even from your end, like when as a client, when your perception of an issue arises, how do we address it? Do we address it? Right? Sometimes I'm just gonna leave it alone. I don't actually think it's that big of a deal. And cool, if it continues, we will. But I really think there's a lot, again, from I would say that problem solving and troubleshooting is one of the biggest things to like look at. Because I think that's one of those, and just communication as a whole. I think those are the two coaching skills that are very highly underrated. And I think that is just what the way your coach communicates with you, one of the easiest ways to learn and grow more. But again, you going through your own journey, you getting to where your clients want to be will make you so much better at guiding them there. What do you have on? What are your thoughts there?
I think I'm just being a really good observer,
Mm-hmm.
fly on the wall mentality, like everything. Like how's your coach like literally how are they communicating? And like how are they delivering your program? Like how do they deliver information? Um and observing like hey what do you like? What don't you like?
Yeah.
Because and we that's something you and I have talked about before too, right? Like with whoever you work with, there are going to be things that you love and things that take what you want, leave the rest, sort of
Right.
thing.
Right.
Um, but also just be really curious, so like ask questions like why is like if you've made a change and it's working, why is that? And then always kind of like looking at things through the lens of like, is this something I could apply to someone? Um, I know like when I started taking clients, um, I've had like a few coaches since then, but every time like whatever I was doing, I was always like there was always some like client that came to my mind. I was like, "Oh yeah, like so and so's also in a deficit right now. Like is this something that I think could work with her?" And the thing is, the more experience you have like being coached, coach and like being put through these like nutritional phases, right? The phasic approach that we teach. The longer you're with a coach, the more you experience like the different phases or like a photo shoot prep or something like that, like you're just collecting skills. And yes, they are relevant and specific to you, but it's not necessarily it's the principle that you're trying to learn and take away and apply elsewhere.
Absolutely. That's again, it won't be like you're just giving someone the exact protocols that we give you,
Right.
but again, there's a lot in the way we do things. Um, Even the little things like I always look at what is it that like the way whoever I'm working with delivers things. How do they like frame things? How do they present things to me that just gets me really excited about this and bought into this? That's something that I'm always really curious about and it's really fascinating to study because like even that is an art. And a lot of people, coaches, this is something I'm always trying to be very intentional about. I think a lot of people, it is a lot more like something your coach might be intentionally doing than you're aware of. Um, all the little things like that, because we could have the exact same program on paper, and the way I deliver it and frame it to the client can completely change their perception of it, how excited for it they are, how well they follow through. I really think that's outside of the obvious, like one of the biggest things I would say there. Anything else to add on that front? Cool. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up here. Looks like we have a lot more questions still, actually. I feel like we were pretty rapid there also. If you enjoy the show, as always, do us a huge favor, leave us a 5-star rating and review. If you would like to apply for coaching with our team, hit the link in the show notes. If we did not answer your question, we will get to them. I promise. Thank you for all the great questions. We appreciate the fact that we have so many. It takes multiple episodes to respond to them. And we will catch you guys soon.